certain point, I wanted to make difficult images that would be hard to like, hard to buy. I mean, that was kind of a reaction to my popularity in the mid-'80s when there were so many nouveau riche collectors who would just buy like the artist of the month, like whoever's the hot young artist of that particular month. Let's buy up some of that work and put it up in our living room. And so I felt like I wanted to challenge people who were collecting my work, but I also the horror and the violence in the work. I think I think it's.
But
I interrupt you. So you don't have an answer to Instagram?
No, but no. Except that it's
Why
all
don't
about,
you have an answer to Instagram?
It's
Because
all
I need
about
an
like
answer
self-promotion and individuality.
I need an answer to Instagram, but you don't give it.
I think Instagram
But
could be interesting. I don't have a problem with Instagram.
And you yourself feel like the voyeur when looking at this photo. How? Why? Well, my only answer to this is something that the feminist left is completely fascinated with, is because they're looking at old 50s and 60s movies and these film stills for examples of male gaze that they can point to as real evidence points. If all male gaze is kind of a vague postmodern theory, or if there's just this vague postmodern theory of identity, that doesn't click with people. But if you point to a 50s movie and say, see, this is the male gaze, it was made for the presumed male audience, then you have a concrete illustration of the point that a non-art academic philosopher type could click with and possibly connect with. The illustration I would use, if you ask me what's the best illustration of male gaze theory, it would be fan service in manga, where
Robert Longo, and I try to be an artist. I think when she made this print is also quite beautiful, is that she highlighted her eyes in the photograph to present a picture where it actually has a soul. When you see it come afterwards, and if anything, it's maybe that those film stills are the template for the future investment. Her work, it affects women and men.
Of any movie which actually exists. So it creates this weird feeling that you might say, oh, I feel like I've seen a movie like this somewhere, but there isn't really a movie anywhere that you can go watch that this is based off. So it says film stills, but they're not really film stills. They're photographs that maybe evoke the idea of a film still. Construing scenes that are evocative of the 50s and 60s film.
Question the notion of authorship from the start. But it was interesting because I ended up ending a class with the debate around who created Fountain. Was it Elsa or was it Marcel? And toying with these issues in authorship and ownership in very interesting ways, and has come up with a contract that's based on it's really a rental agreement for his art, and it's based on these very exploitative kind of stores essentially in the U.S. that are called Rent-A-Center, but they basically mean not only that the collector only rents the work from Roland, but they end up being financially exploitative to the collector in the end. And of course, the use of the contract is in itself the work, not the object so much. But that's just one example of it. I mean, he's always very interested in the infrastructure of what's, and self-conscious now. He's interested in the infrastructure, basically, of like buying and selling things and where money changes hands. So he did a solo exhibition at Artist Space in 2016, which I think was the most interesting project so far that he's done. And for that one, he did research into the way that in New York State, and I think in the U.S. in general, the prison system produces all of the furniture, like office furniture, for public schools and institutional buildings like government offices and things. But it means that they're prison laborers who are getting paid, pennies for the hour.
Somebody who is makes a relation between the 80s and Instagram, or
He doesn't. Well, he's written on Instagram insofar as he's written on Richard Prince's work with Instagram.
And what is his name?
Nate Harrison.
Okay.
He's very good, but he makes these connections between these.
Or rather, where read it?
He doesn't have a book yet. Soon. Great dissertation and many articles, many articles.
Many articles.
Yeah, you just search for his name, you'll find
okay.
him. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Obsessed with what you guys were doing. So.
But how come you're so interested in the 80s? Are you interested in the 80s?
I'm not really, but that's
no.
me.
But it's
Ask somebody
our
else.
problem. It's our problem that we talk about the 80s.
Door iemand die Boromir heet. Een huur die vraagt mij hoeveel geld ik bij me draag. Even kijken hoeveel ik heb. Bijna 2000 goudstukken bij me. Van het Rosso, dat is een andere speler die... Ik zal even kijken of het wel wat een echt mens is. Als het door een computer gegenereerd persoon is, dan vind ik het niet echt leuk om mee te gaan. Hey, ik krijg 2000 goldcoins van Hul. En ik heb een geweldig uitzicht. Want die Boromir heet. Ik loop nu meer met Boromir. Ik weet niet wie dat is. Ik heb hem nog niet eerder ontmoet. Ik kijk naar hem en wat zie ik? Een huur die vraagt mij hoeveel geld ik bij me draag. Even kijken hoeveel ik heb. Bijna 2000 goudstukken bij me. Van het Rosso, dat is een andere speler die... Ik zal even kijken of het wel wat een echt mens is. Als het door een computer gegenereerd persoon...
Who work at museums are very concerned. It changes the nature of what artwork is most attractive to consumers. And so in order to compete with the trendy, colorful exhibits that are popping up, you have to add some of those components to the more traditional exhibits.
Way of saying boldly, it's okay, you can be who you are, mediate your experience in the museum however feels right to you.
It's very rare that museums are no photos anymore. I mean, and that change has just been in the last 5 years.
Just the act of photo taking itself and choosing what to capture changes the nature of your experience. And that alone is changing how people go through museums. Having the intention to post or share photos in mind while you're taking the photos can actually remove you from the experience.
People who were collecting my work, but I also the horror and the violence in the work. I think I think it's tempered with humor, because I mean I think it's funny, the pictures I'm showing, because you know it's fake. I'm not trying to. I want people to have different stories, and I mean I've learned that sometimes people's versions of a photograph, of the narrative in a photograph, might be completely not what I would want somebody to think, but I just realize I can't control that. So yeah, I realize I have to keep it open-ended, and so people can discover their own stories.
But also,
But Cindy Sherman, I think, has exploited that in a kind of interesting.
it's made 30 years ago in the 80s, a film with his work, and he still seems to be popular. Or is it just the old generation that's happy with him? Ben Branca, you know him?
Yeah, I do.
Ben Branca, you know him?
Yeah, I do. But I think it's generational.
Yeah, okay.
In a way where I know who that is, but I don't know if like a 25-year-old.
Ben Branca, you know him?
Yeah, I do. But I think it's generational.
Yeah, okay.
In a way where I know who that is, but I don't know if like a 25-year-old. But that's
No.
me.
But
Ask somebody
it's our
else.
problem. It's our problem that we talk about the 80s.
But I think the problem is with this like hyper individuality and like hyper identity politics that's being pressed in that like you have to, which basically just means that like instead of having bigger conversations.
And nobody has an answer to Instagram.
Well, because I don't really, I'm not very interested in social media. I have an Instagram account and it's all my friends. I don't really follow artists, but there are well, because I don't really, I'm not very interested in social media. I have an Instagram account and it's all my friends. I don't really follow artists, but there are plenty of other people my age.
You don't have to follow art. It's more like how can I have a grip on it? Because I want a grip on Instagram.
I mean, Cindy Sherman has a really great Instagram, if you want to take it back to the pictures generation. Instagram is her medium. She has a great
Instagram is her. That's right.
Instagram feed.
Ah, this is an interesting observation.
It's really, it's great.
She is Instagram.
Yeah, but it's a continuation.
And how come that she's on Instagram and that Robert Longo is not Instagram? Can you give me an answer?
Because Longo's work is about it's different temporality. Cindy Sherman's work fits very easily into the speed of mass media, or I guess in this or whatever social media. Longo is slow.
Yeah,
it's slow work.
Yeah.
It's not designed.
You know, I had 8 dealers from 6 different countries in my studio the other day. You tell me, how am I supposed to paint?
All you need to remember is that man's impulse to make art comes out of the knowledge of his impending death.
No, you got that wrong. All of man's impulse to make art comes out of his knowledge of his impending tax audit.
Jesus, you really are a pain in the ass to talk to sometimes. Anytime anybody ever tries to say anything serious to you, you get threatened. Everything degenerates into a joke. You know, it's like talking to some bartender at a disco.
You never says anything serious. It's all pompous shit, just like your fucking writing. Now, here's a quote for you. There's those who do, and there's those who review.
Yeah? Well, let me tell you something. If it wasn't for my reviews, you'd be a total joke out there. Do you know what a strain it is to write seriously about you these days? You're nothing but a parody of yourself.
You're a good friend.
You better believe I'm a good friend. If it wasn't for my writing, you couldn't sell blood to a hemophiliac. You worried about your tax audit? Why don't you get a little booth at Bloomingdale's, design some t-shirts and some designer watches, or get some little girls to sell them on Easter and Christmas? You'll be really immortal then. You wouldn't have to worry about nothing.
You cannot win, you can't win, it's a conspiracy. You work, you slave.
So they carried out King Lear, and a bomb went off, and the set fell down.
Jesus! Terrorists?
No, the director. I'm here. So am I. Anyway, it was just brilliant, even in Sweden. Ugh. Oh dear.
Oh, Lord.
Ugh.
Excuse us, but it's hell out there if you don't drink. And if you do, you want some? Grows wild.
So, anyway, we're opening on Broadway next week, and the show is just dreadful. I don't know whether to change my name or take an alias.
Oh, don't worry. The mere existence of a production these days ensures its legitimacy. Anyway, the critics will love it. Then how will you feel?
Oh, God.
What's that old line? She whom God makes successful in show business. She whom God hates
Makes successful in show business. Yeah, right. I just don't know why I'm doing it anymore. It's like I'm brainwashing for a living.
Well, take my advice. Don't rehearse your despair. You know, lately I have been waking up in the middle of the night, and I keep feeling like my brownstone is collapsing beneath me. I jerk up. I have this falling sensation, and I feel as if my body is just falling down through space.
Don't go in there. Somebody got
The cat is
sick.
screaming, crashing to a drain. No. I know I'm phobic. I realize that.
It's like I've been well fed in here.
It's the end of civilization.
Some people around nowadays are awfully tender and young. Have you noticed?
Yes. Unfortunately, I have. Come on.
Break it. That's great. That's great.
I got it.
We're gonna sell a broken radio.
Hey, it's a little fucked up. It'll still play, man. Don't worry. Sell this shit tonight.
Ridiculous. I can't believe.
Hey, get the fuck out of here, man. Beat it. Go on, get the fuck out of here. Right?
What are you, stupid?
Sell this, man.
Can't believe what this city's come to.
Let me get some more shit, and then we're done, all right?
Just look at this
fucking complaint.
It took you a fucking hour to get a radio out. I don't believe this.
What's going on?
But maybe it's the real thing. Look at
Settle down. He's just having one of his fits. Forgets to take his medicine. His doctor's number's on the list next to the phone. Christ.
Hey, it's okay. Everything is going good.
What's his name? I got it.
His eyes, he's beginning to think. He's on.
Is free from terrorists. Iran was being diverted.
Who's that?
Used to be on some cop show or something.
I meant the phone. Yes? Sorry.
Mayonnaise. That's it? Anything else? Salt, pepper? That's it? Mustard? Nothing else? Would you like some coffee?
No, thank you.
How about a nice piece of cheesecake?
No, not tonight.
Okay. $2.25. You got a quarter, I'm kind of short on change. Thank you.
No, well, artists don't live in Manhattan anymore.
No?
Everyone lives
There's
in
no art in
Brooklyn or
Manhattan.
Queens.
Okay,
Or
the money art.
that's just Chelsea. I mean, that's just looking art forum.
Yeah, that I remember.
But Cameron was on the cover of Art Forum already, actually. I mean, it's pretty amazing, and he's younger than I am. But anyway, but so basically, it's about exposing this wage system, but also, and all of these pieces were, I think, were on this rental agreement. But the interesting thing happened, I think, and this didn't get written about very much. But the interesting thing happened with the nonprofit registration, because by making it clear that it was only the nonprofit system that could benefit essentially from this exploitative labor, it really actually points all of the attention onto.
Really the word, exploitative labor.
Yes, yeah,
You
and
go back to the 19th
yeah,
century there.
yeah.
Really?
Well, you go back to slavery.
Yeah.
Because I don't know the numbers, but the vast majority of people in the U.S. prison system are African American or well, Black Americans of different descent.
Not white.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. No, I only
They
say
just-
that because they make me feel old. But like,
Yeah, no, that's right.
so I'm like, that's not
Generation
true
is
at all.
interested in-
No. I don't think that's true. I don't think it's true. I think it's changing
There's a
very
newer
fast.
generation, which is
It's
really different idea.
the generation Y, whatever, the generation younger than mine are totally different. There's one other thing I wanted to finish saying about the nonprofit, though, with Cameron Rowland's work, though, because with that piece, what it does is force a level of transparency around really how exploitative the nonprofit system is itself, and the fact that in the U.S., like the nonprofit system, especially in art, is basically used as a tax haven you know,
Do I read some?
you would understand this work. I think this work ends up being, but it's a mix. It's tough. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe to be honest with you, I don't.
But art form
I don't think I pay enough attention to art forum, and
that's
that's
a
what
point. Yeah,
says
yeah.
something to it.
Yeah, something also.
Yeah. Because the journals, I don't know. I mean, there's so many of them on some level. What are my parents?
Make a connection between you and me. What is your what is kind of art you like? And
we are making a connection. That was a pictures generation response.
Generation gap everywhere, and so, or am I wrong?
I don't think
Or am I
so.
wrong?
Actually, I mean, maybe it's just from my knowledge of it, but I actually think, well, I'm going to say video artists, because that's what you get now, which is different than I do for you.
Yes, that's what I want.
This is when we make an agreement.
No, I make a joke, but
we have a napkin here. It's an enforceable contract.
It's really about, not about money, but it's about an agreement about artistic ideas or whatever.
We're on first name basis now. And,
But I choose. Yeah,
but I say this because it's very interesting that this whole evening, I think, has made me think more about too. It's just the extent to which the narrative that it was created by Elsa, by a woman, which overturns so much of art history, is very appealing. And it is very appealing, I think, for good reason, because we can point to all of the problems with the way that art history has been written, again, as we were talking about earlier, and it's so much about the single author, and it's so, and it is so much about, yes, male authors and artists have gotten much more attention in the past. Lots of injustice there. But at the same time, it's a very big problem to run back and celebrate that narrative that it was Elsa without really thinking about the stakes of that debate. And so I also started that class with the Linda Nochlin, of course. Why have there been no famous women artists? And but the point of that essay is not so much to name women artists, but it's the bigger question that Nochlin gets that. Why have there been no great women artists? Sorry, but the point that Nochlin, the point that Nochlin really gets to, is to take issue with, again, this whole notion.
And then just moving on, there is intelligence to this work. I'm actually not that blown away by it. I think she's trying to evoke the idea of Alfred Hitchcock, and this is one of her better photos, but some of her photos look like someone who's LARPing as an Alfred Hitchcock character. She's kind of fumbling around trying to get the feel of an Alfred Hitchcock movie, and it's obvious it's some college student fumbling around trying to figure out how to imitate the look of this thing. But she's actually evoking the idea of a film noir movie pretty well. She's using good materials to create a interesting visual image. This isn't the kind of art that I am especially geeky about, which would be drawing and painting and the Italian Renaissance, but I can admire that she is actually using materials to create a powerful image which looks cool. This isn't a tampon and a tea. The stills are dense with suspense and danger, Arthur Dono stated, and they all look as if they were directed by Alfred Hitchcock. The invariant subject is the girl in trouble, all caps to indicate a kind of trope. Even if the girl herself does not always know it. The girl is always alone, waiting, worried, watchful, but she is wary of, waiting for, worried about, and her posture and expression phenomenologically imply the other, the stalker, the saver, the evil, and good, who struggle for her possession. So, and he's suggesting that Cindy Sherman's work deconstructs or confronts these tropes which reduce women to objects, which make women possessions. Patriarchal tropes in film oppress women and damage women, and Cindy Sherman is deconstructing these film tropes through her film series.
I think the sausages from one of the sex pictures are here. I don't know. Some of the leaves I've used in backgrounds of some of the fairy tales and the rocks I used in some of the fairy tales. This one was one that I made from, I don't know what series you'd call it, but it was sort of, I guess, part of those disaster-y kind of masks that I did. I think this one I used in that Kiss one. It was like an upside, it was like with, I think it was with this head. I think they were like that together, and I took a picture like that, something like that. And oh, this one. Yeah. That one was actually, I forgot what she was. I was looking for her. She was the one I used to use as the sort of fill-in for me. It's like the thing I focus on. Basically, I have this head on a tripod that I use to stand in for myself. So then what I do is figure out where the camera is going to be and put a piece of tape down, and then put tape down according to where the eye line is. So then the tricky part is to, when I'm actually shooting myself in the picture, to make sure that I'm always like gauging as closely as I can estimate where the focus is. And it doesn't always work. So you know, sometimes I'll have to move it from side to side depending on which side I'm favoring, or try to move it closer if I can't really tell. But yeah, it's just really important to sort of know, just look at myself and figure out what's working and what's not.